Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is October 19. Today, as we continue to read the early stages of the recordings of Jesus' life and ministry, we come to some very challenging readings once again. I know that after we finished the Old Testament and we worked our way through all the long lists of genealogies and names recorded in 1 Chronicles chapters 1 through 9, you may have thought we were through with all of those names for a while. But if you notice in today's reading, right at the beginning of the telling of the story of Jesus, we also have these long lists of genealogies. Now, I mentioned in yesterday's video, and we saw in yesterday's reading, that Matthew and Luke are really the only two of the gospel writers that tell the birth narrative of Jesus, about Jesus being born in Bethlehem to Joseph and to Mary. Now, John tells a unique birth narrative, but he takes it all the way back, not really a birth narrative at all, because he takes his beginning all the way back to the beginning of the world, to the creation itself. But since Matthew and Luke tell us the birth narratives of the baby Jesus, they also feel the need to tell their audiences about Jesus' lineage, where he comes from. And so I want to direct your attention to today's reading, and I want us to focus especially on the comments of the editor of this Bible in the gray section, because he's going to help us to see the importance of the names that are listed here for us to read. Matthew's account has no formal introduction, but rather begins with a genealogy tracing the descent of Jesus from his ancestor Abraham through the royal lineage of David the king. Now let's pause for just a moment and understand Matthew is a Jew. As a matter of fact, he is one of the 12 who is called as an apostle of Jesus Christ. Matthew is a Jew who is writing to a Jewish audience. So his writing about the life of Jesus is certainly going to have a Jewish perspective. Given that, when he wants to tell about the heritage or the genealogy of Jesus, he wants to trace Jesus back and connect him to Abraham, the father of the faithful, the father of the Jewish nation, the father of all the promises that were made that we reiterated yesterday together. Abraham is where it all begins as far as the Jews are concerned. And so Matthew joyfully is going to connect Jesus all the way back to Abraham with this list of genealogies. Matthew lists 42 of the known generations and divides these into 3 groups of 14 each. The genealogy is traced through Jesus' legal father, Joseph, as the husband of the Virgin Mary, to whom Jesus was born. Matthew's genealogy contains several happy surprises. Now, this is interesting. Back in Jesus' early roots are not only such notable righteous men such as Abraham and David, which you would expect, of course, but also several who stand out in history as being particularly unrighteous, including wicked King Manasseh. So not only are there great biblical heroes listed in this genealogy, like Abraham, but even wicked kings are listed, like Manasseh. Not only are there Jews, as would be expected, but also Gentiles, including a Canaanite and a Moabite, whose respective countrymen have been notorious enemies of God's people. Also, somewhat surprising in view of their social status at this time is the listing of women as well as men. Furthermore, at least 2 of these women are known best for sins which they had committed. So it's an interesting hodgepodge, you might say, of individuals who are all a part of the heritage that Matthew spells out as the lineage of Christ. He does connect Jesus all the way back to Abraham, as has been mentioned, but he uses some interesting sources and going through some interesting routes that maybe wouldn't have been expected by the most loyal of the Jews. As we turn the page and we start to see Another genealogical listing, this is Luke's genealogy, and they do not line up especially the same because, again, Luke is a different author, he has a different purpose, and he's writing to a different audience. Luke also provides a genealogy of Jesus, but his account traces the lineage directly through Jesus' mother, Mary. This explains the differences in ancestors from Heli, who is assumed to be the father-in-law of Mary's husband, Joseph, to David. Luke's genealogy also goes not just back to Abraham, but even beyond Abraham, all the way back through Noah, Enoch, Seth, and Adam to God himself, who created the human race. Now remember, Luke is a Gentile writing to Gentiles. They are not as interested in the Jewish line. They're not as interested in Abraham as the father of the Jewish nation. And so Luke takes his tracings of Jesus' roots all the way back through Noah, all the way back through Adam to God himself, trying to demonstrate to his audiences that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. As I mentioned yesterday as well, John begins with creation. He says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so this Word became flesh and dwelt among us." So John, again, doesn't go through genealogies, but he connects Jesus directly to God and recognizes Jesus as God in the flesh. Perhaps the most significant aspect of these genealogies is the connection between Jesus and his ancestor, King David. Now, there's a reason for that. The prophets of old had repeatedly foretold that the Messiah would be of the house of David and a branch of Jesse, David's father. Now, David is still remembered, especially by the Jewish people, as one of the greatest kings who ever lived. David is still remembered and acknowledged as a man who was after God's heart. And so when this Messiah is prophesied, and often prophesied to come through the line of King David, the people are naturally expecting this Messiah, when he does arrive, to be another king, to be someone in a position of power and of authority, someone who's going to deliver these people from the bondage of their oppressors. At the time of Jesus' birth, it will be the Roman Empire. And many of the people, it becomes very obvious, are looking for a Messiah to deliver them from the bondage and the enslavery of the Roman Empire. They're looking for some sort of national revolt. They're looking for some sort of political revolution. But they'll soon find out, as will we, when we read the story of Jesus' ministry. He is interested not in a political revolution at all. Jesus is interested primarily in a revolution of people's hearts. He's interested in a spiritual revolution. Therefore, from the Jews' perspective, as we can see, Jesus is of the royal lineage. He is worthy to be the King of Israel. And this brings comfort to many, but it also brings confusion to many people because they, in this line, just as I said, are expecting the Messiah to be some sort of political king who reigned just like those political kings who reigned before him. And that's not the kind of king Jesus is going to be. Actually, we're going to see on more than one occasion where the crowds try to take Jesus by force and make him king. But Jesus avoids such opportunities because that's not the kind of kingship he desires. He is the King of the Jews. He is the King of all peoples. He's your king. He's my king. But he's not a physical king. He is our spiritual ruler. He is our spiritual king. He is our spiritual Lord. And it is him, and only him, whose name we confess, who sits on the throne of our hearts, and to whom we give glory and honor. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.